Welcome. This is finally March 31, 2016. I personally thought I would never get here, so I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. As the president of the French-American Chamber of Commerce, it is a great honor for me to welcome you here today to our first French-American Luxury Symposium. First, a few words on the French-American Chamber of Commerce. There will be a quiz at the end of the day, so please listen. So the French-American Chamber of Commerce is a premier French-American business organization with 18 chapters across the US and 5,000 members. New York is the biggest chapter with close to 1,000 members, which include all the French CAC 40 companies in the area, as well as a large representation from several key industries, including luxury, finance, tech, media, food, beverage, and hospitality. And our members also include a large number of French and American service providers and professionals. So we are a member-driven, non-profit, private, no French government ownership organization. We have about 30 events a year, including many that are specifically focused on business issues, but also some that are networking opportunities for our members. We also have adopted a very special interest and focus on two categories: women in business and young entrepreneurs. Another important activity of ours is the processing of visas for interns and trainees. For instance, last year we processed over 1,000 J1 visas for French interns and trainees coming to the United States, which of course is a very important way for those young people to go back to France with a better understanding of the US of A. That's not including Trump, that no one understands. So, sorry, that's the only political comment I will make. We also recently launched another activity which I'm very proud of, which is called FACC Co-work, which is a way for us to welcome French entrepreneurs on their arrival in New York, temporary workspace, lots of good advice, and lots of TLC, and then we push them out and hope that they can fly on their own. Finally, in 2012, we created a foundation, the FACC Foundation, whose purpose really is to grant scholarships to French and American MBA students going to travel in the other country. Again, the purpose of that is for us to be very actively involved in forming and training business leaders of tomorrow that will have a better understanding of French and US business. In that effort, we partner with very prestigious schools such as HEC, ESSEC, Harvard Business School, MIT, Wharton, and many others. Therefore, as a conclusion of this first section, I just wanted to make sure you know that we are a valuable organization, very focused on both business and networking for our members. So really, why are we doing a luxury symposium, and why now? I'm very aware that we're not the only luxury event in the world. Obviously, we're going to be the best, but we are the only one that focuses entirely on French and American luxury brands. And I think there are two reasons also for the legitimacy, and first it's the FACC, the French-American Chamber of Commerce. For the number of years now, we have focused on luxury-specific events. They have tended to be end-of-day events from 6 to 8, and then networking after that. We've done 4 a year for the past several years, and each time the events were sold out, and so it was clear that there was a lot of interest and time for us to expand and grow up. The second is, and there's just a few words on my other life as the founder of Vendôme Global Partners, which is an M&A advisory firm that focuses entirely on luxury. We live luxury, we breathe luxury, we love luxury, and we are successful thanks to luxury. So we had a few words and thoughts to contribute to the program and to the elite speakers that we have here today. And finally, the time is right. Why is the time right to be talking about luxury? As you've seen if you've read the program and the material, the luxury industry is facing many, many challenges, changes, and hopefully opportunities. The global growth rate has decreased in the last few years, and there is now significant uncertainty regarding the timing of a recovery in some key luxury markets. To name a few, not to be too obvious, Hong Kong, China, Brazil, Middle East, and we certainly can't talk about Europe and US being huge growth engines. So a lot of uncertainty. But in addition, currency, of course, wreaks havoc on all of this. But now we face new challenges that have been brewing and coming, but they're really in our face. Number one, the new consumer, millennials. They don't act like we do. I'm not a millennial, in case you didn't know. 85 million millennials, 80 million baby boomers. It's not insignificant. They don't consume the same way. They want experience, they demand authenticity, they want to know where things come from, why you're doing it, and why should I spend so much money to own another bag, another pair of whatever. So, and then the technology. So technology means a lot to different people, but no one can deny that it's here. It allows innovation, it kills certain business models, it enables others. So really, is it bad? Is it good? What does it mean for luxury brands? And then, what kind of talent is needed to manage in all of these uncertainties? And perhaps also, is corporate social responsibility a marketing buzzword, or is it really a fundamental and a necessity for brands looking into the future? So we felt that we were legitimate in talking about this, and it was the right time. A few data points, not too many, but I'm trying to find some that are kind of interesting takeaways. No slides, so there are a lot of different sources for the luxury industry information. And I'm shocked to see that Bain & Company says that it's €1 trillion, and BCG says it's 1.7 trillion euros. Small delta. So I chose the one I could find quicker. So it's Bain & Company, released for 2015, total luxury industry over €1 trillion. The largest component is, any ideas? Luxury cars, 405 billion. Another very important category, luxury hotels, 176 billion. So the personal luxury goods, which is what we tend to think about when we think of luxury, that's 253 billion euros, and it breaks down into the 5 key categories, which are accessories, the most important with 30%, apparel, 24%, hard luxury, 22%, that's jewelry, watches, etc., beauty, 20%, and other 4%. The biggest region for luxury in the world is not China, it's Americas, 34%. Then Europe, 33%. China, 7%. But if we look at the largest nationality of luxury consumption, Chinese are number 1, 31%, Americans at 24%, and Europeans at 18%. Another fact is, I think we all know, global tourists now represent 35% of this market. So anyone in this business has to address the traveling consumer. Finally, how do you break down luxury personal goods between absolute luxury, aspirational luxury, and accessible? Absolute is 26%, aspirational is 36%, and accessible is 38%. And last, a personal favorite of mine, when you analyze a personal luxury goods market by country and key cities, New York represents 27 billion euro, and that is 35% of the entire US market, but it's the largest of any luxury country in the world. The city of New York is larger. Japan, so New York's 27 billion, Japan is 20, mainland China, 18, France, 17, Italy, 17.2, Hong Kong, 7. So don't forget New York. So now let's just move quickly onto the program. As you know, the subtitle of our program is Innovation and Tradition, a Paradox Rich in Opportunity. We've talked about this being a crucial time in our industry and the significant headwinds that it's facing, perhaps the largest ever. We've developed a very dense program covering many important themes, and they represent some of the important challenges and opportunities that luxury brands, big and small, are facing today. So the content-rich agenda is going to cover a spotlight on the industry with Luca Solca, and then we'll be talking about 2 key categories of luxury brands, those that have a long history and heritage, and those that are more recently formed. The program will also focus on how do you connect with today's consumers, the need for the right financial partner, the importance of creative leadership and of corporate social responsibilities, all areas in flux today and all needing urgent address. While we will be covering many different relevant topics, we are not able to include an important theme, which is the changes affecting many of the geographic luxury markets that we discussed briefly. You know, Hong Kong, China, Russia, but also Brazil, Middle East. We ran out of time, and we felt that if we added an evening session, we would lose some of you. So stay tuned, and we'll have to do some more of these events. Now a few words on speakers. We have many high-quality, fantastic speakers from the luxury industry who have been asked to share their honest views and candid opinions. They bring vast and different experience and very different backgrounds. They come from France and from US and other countries. I wouldn't, just French and American brands. They've agreed to talk to you in a very direct manner, thought-provoking, and not to hide behind institutional talk. So we have now assembled 38 great speakers, and some of you flew in to New York from Europe and the West Coast. Merci and thank you for your time and for coming. The format today includes 3 keynote speakers and 6 thematic panels, and we do have a mosaic of representation of companies and experience in the room. I'm going to oppose a few that we went through deliberately in creating this program and the audience. We have French and American brands. We have well-established heritage brands with multiple decades and sometimes centuries of experience, but also the more recently formed brands with no past luggage. We have technology creators, we have brand developers. We have multinationals, we have family-owned companies. We have startups, we have larger companies, private and public, investors, buyers, financiers, and brand owners. This will allow us to have a very interesting dialogue. And of course, by now I hope aware that you are part of the program. We ask you to be engaged. It'll make it richer for everyone. I'd like to thank Concise, thanks to whom we all have iPads for the day. And this will allow us to really have this interactive dialogue that we're looking for. And not to be too cute, but we're trying to mimic, in a way, the incessant dialogue that is needed by today's brands when they speak to their consumers, or should. It's all about talking, listening, hearing, speaking, and never stopping. So please participate and answer the questions when the speakers address the room. You are part of the program. I want to thank you for your support of this symposium, and also to the sponsors. It's a short but it's high quality list. Platinum is Denton's, merci François. Gold, Weiser Mazars and Cartier. Silver, BNP Paribas and Concise. Bronze, Deloitte, LVMH, IWD with the cool glasses you'll discover at lunch. ESSEC, HEC, Havas Luxe. Speaker gifts, Moët & Chandon and Z Chocolates. Cocktail sponsor JLL, well known for their real estate expertise. And exclusive official airline of the FACC, Air France and Delta, who have a surprise for us later on. Finally, you know we're sold out. We have more than 50 people on the wait list. You are now part of the happy few, so congratulations for being here. Today will be a unique luxury experience, and another theme that you know about is it's sometimes more important to experience luxury and not just own it. So we're trying to also have a luxury experience today. We're delighted to be able to have you with us on this very unusual event. And Martin Bischoff, Managing Director of FACC New York, will be our dynamic MC today, dressed for the occasion in wild purple. Thank you, Martin. Concise will now say a few words regarding the iPads, how you'll be able to participate, and then we get to work. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Elsa. My name is James Shepherd-Walwyn. I work with Concise. We're very grateful to the French-American Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity to partner on the first luxury symposium. I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to explain how the technology works. If you haven't already done so, on the back of your name badge is a PIN number, and you can use that unique PIN number, please, to log in to the app. On the iPad in front of you. If anybody has any difficulties, or if you don't have a PIN number, Stephanie and Victoria will be more than happy to assist. Just raise your hand and we'll come to you. Once you've logged into the app and you've tapped on the thank you button on the welcome note, you'll see a series of buttons down at the bottom of the screen. And if you tap on the first of those, the welcome letter, you'll see there's a welcome letter and also a link to an app user guide down at the bottom of the screen if you need to learn any more about how to use the app. But I'll cover all the key features now. The navigation you see is down the left-hand side, and I'll just step you through the key features. So if you tap on the agenda icon, you'll see the agenda for the day. You can simply scroll through that. You can tap on a speaker's name or photograph in order to read his or her biography, and then just tap on the little X to close that window. You'll see there are more information buttons which enable you to read more about the session or the panel in question. Then if you tap on the biographies button on the left-hand side on the navigation bar, there you'll see an index of all the speakers and all the panelists that we have with us today. Simply tap on someone's photograph in order to read more about the speakers. Presentations is the next icon down, and if you tap on that, you'll see that we'll actually push the presentation slides. As they appear on the main screen, we'll push them out to the iPads. So that you've got a clear view of them. You can pinch to zoom if there are charts or tables you want to see in more detail. And also, if you tap anywhere on the screen, you'll see in the top right-hand corner is a note button. And if you tap on that note button, a little, almost like a post-it note appears, and you can tap within that, and you can take notes. And your notes will automatically be sent to you at the end of the conference, together with any materials that you've requested and with the slides on which you took your notes. Also, and this is the first slide, so there aren't any slides in the history mode, but if you tap on the screen, you'll see a history button up in the top right-hand corner. If you tap on that history button, it's a bit like TiVo or DVR. You can then tap to the left to rewind to see slides from earlier in the day. And there's a live little picture of the live speaker slide down in the bottom right. Simply tap on that and it'll take you back to the current slide. As Elsa mentioned, a key part of the app isn't just going paperless and being able to refresh the content in real time. It's also to make the sessions more interactive. So throughout the day, our panelists and presenters will be posing questions to you, the audience. And in fact, we've got, I know, one test question that we're going to ask you now. So what happens is we'll just make that question appear live on your iPad, as it should have now. Hopefully everybody's going to be voting for the same answer. If you simply tap on the answer of your choice and then tap on the submit button, what you'll see is someone was clearly told they had to come today rather than choosing to come. But at least it proves that the technology works. So we'll be using this throughout the day for the presenters and the panelists, as I say, to really engage with you. And there'll be different types of questions. There'll be some where you're asked to select a single answer, others where you're asked to type in a one-word answer and submit that. So all will become clear. We'll make those questions appear on your iPad. You don't need to do anything specifically for that. Elsa's already mentioned the sponsors, but you'll see on the navigation bar on the left-hand side, there's a sponsors tab where you can read more about the sponsors. You'll see them grouped by the different categories at the top. If you would like to receive a copy of the information on any sponsor, you'll see there's a little shopping tag or bookmark icon at the top right-hand corner of each document. Simply tap on that shopping tag, and again, we'll email that to you with your notes at the end of the conference. Similarly with resources, which is the next icon down on the navigation bar, there you'll see various categories relating to the different sessions and panels that we have, and within that are a number of PDF materials for you to refer to. Again, if you just tap on one of those, you can open that PDF. Up in the top right-hand corner, there are 3 buttons. The first, again, enables you to take notes on a specific PDF, so just tap on that note button, type in your note using the on-screen keyboard and tap on done. The second shopping tag icon, again, will mean that you've requested a copy of that PDF, and we'll send that to you automatically at the end of the conference. As you know, this is the first luxury symposium, and your feedback is really welcomed on the event. And there's a feedback form which you can access via that feedback button on the left-hand side. We'll probably push that out to the iPads towards the end of the day, but please do take a moment to rate the various questions that we're asking there throughout the event. Finally, another aspect of interactivity is we would welcome your questions throughout the day for the panelists and for the speakers. And you'll see down in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a Q&A button that says Ask next to it. If you tap on that, you can then submit questions at any time throughout the day, and we'll try and get to as many of those questions as we can during each of the sessions. You'll see that your name is pre-populated. If you want to remove your name, that's absolutely fine. If you want to submit a question anonymously, just tap on the X next to your name, and that'll remove your name. Type in your question, tap on submit, and as I say, we'll get to as many of the questions as we can throughout the day. I think that's pretty much everything. As I say, Victoria and Stephanie are here if you have any questions at all. Probably the last thing I should say is the iPads are not gifts, so please do not take them home with you. We would really appreciate getting them all back, and we do track who has returned their iPad and who hasn't. So thank you very much. Again, thank you to the French American Chamber of Commerce for the opportunity to partner with you on this. Enjoy the day, and I hope that you find the technology enjoyable and useful. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. If we haven't met, I'm Martin Bischoff. I'm the Managing Director of the French American Chamber of Commerce. It's my great honor and pleasure to welcome you again to our French American Luxury Symposium. Before I introduce our first keynote speaker of the day, allow me just one moment to recognize the extraordinary work that was put into this event by our president, Elsa Berry. Elsa, as many of you know who know Elsa, she's involved in many activities in the French American business community, from formerly at the Lycée Français and the HEC Alumni Association, the Chamber, the Conseil du Commerce Extérieur. So she's somebody who really gives a lot to our community. And for this event in particular, she shared her contacts. She shared her own luxury brand, the brand of Elsa Berry and Vendôme Global Partners. And she spent days and nights and weekends, showed phenomenal leadership and commitment to an outstanding result. So if you'd please join me a quick round of applause for Elsa and all the work she's done. Much appreciated. So with that, it is my honor and pleasure to introduce our first keynote speaker of the day, Mr. Luca Solca, who is the Managing Director of Global Luxury Goods at Exane BNP Paribas, who will speak about the luxury market, a rapidly changing landscape. So again, all the bios are in your iPads. Please join me now in welcoming Luca Solca.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Elsa, for inviting me here. It's an honor to speak at this first Luxury Goods Conference. I will start by making a point, which is the formula, the growth formula that we've seen working for luxury goods companies in the most recent years is not really working anymore and needs to be addressed. What was the formula? When we look at what the growth drivers have been in the most recent years, this is the picture that shows you the largest luxury goods companies in the world, the publicly traded ones, and what has prompted their top line growth. And you recognize that on the one hand, space and like-for-like have been the two most important drivers. So the formula was opening more stores, and like-for-like, for the most part, was increasing prices. So higher prices, more retail stores, more retail space was really the formula. You see that 4% and 6% was providing a quite hefty 10% growth per year, and all was good and jolly. Except when we look forward, we see that, first of all, pricing seems to be stretched. Here at the top, this line shows you the gross margin, the combined gross margin of the companies that I just showed you. And you see that in the most recent 4 or 5 years, the gross margin has increased by about 500 to 600 basis points. So prices have become higher, quite significantly so. And this is not so good because we have a number of deflationary forces at play within the industry. Well, first of all, we have that growth is primarily driven by the middle class in China. Middle class consumers, when we compare them to the early consumers 10 years ago in China that had deep pockets and were very rich, have significantly shallower pockets. They care much more about prices. They care much more about price gaps. And they have unprecedented levels of transparency, price transparency, because of digital and internet presence by most of the luxury goods brands. The other point is that Chinese authorities have a capital flight issue on their hands, and they're trying as much as they can to repatriate Chinese luxury spend to their country. You just saw a major disconnect. You just heard a major disconnect in Elsa's introduction. China, as a luxury market, geographically is worth around 7%. The Chinese, as a nationality, are worth about a third, or 31%, according to Bain. Now, the difference between these two numbers is Chinese money that is spent abroad. The Chinese authority, and that is worth more or less 50 billion euros per year. And with foreign currency reserves declining, the Chinese government is very keen on getting that money, or part of that money, back into the country. And what is the best way than to get the European brands to reduce prices in China so that Chinese consumers have less of an incentive to spend their money abroad? And the other point is that you have a number of accessible luxury brands coming to the market and competing for market share and consumer spend. This is very clear, for example, when we look at the leather goods space. If we compare again French and American brands, you have the likes of Vuitton having entry price points at around 1,000 or 800 euros for handbags, and you have the likes of Michael Kors competing at a significantly lower level. Michael Kors has been grown phenomenally, and so has Tory Burch and a number of other players in France, even like Longchamp. So continuing to increase the entry price points of your products is a recipe for reducing market share and posting very disappointing growth rates. Now, coming to retail space, which was the other important growth driver that I showed you in my first page. When we look at this superficially, and this is our review of luxury goods stores in 2013 and 2015 for all of these brands that you see here on the left. We have built a proprietary luxury store database which includes about 20,000 different addresses. When you look at it as a whole, you see that as a whole, the number of stores between 2013 and 2015 grew quite significantly, 4%. Remember that we were looking at 4 to 5% being brought by new retail space, and the other 4 or 5% being delivered by higher prices or like for like. So all seems to be good, except when you look at who was actually driving that 4%, you see up there that just two brands, Michael Kors and Tory Burch, were responsible for about 75% of that 4%. So 3 percentage points of the 4 were just driven by two brands. And the remaining portion was largely dependent on a handful of high-end niche brands. So what this says is that for the largest players in the industry, opening more stores is not really an option. Opening more stores for large brands in luxury goods, in personal luxury goods today, is off the menu. And by the way, expanding retail networks with negative like-for-like, with negative same-store sales, is a very bad idea. Why is it a very bad idea? Because what you see here on the left-hand side of this page is that sales per square foot and return on invested capital typically correlate. What we're showing here is general retailers, because they give us the figures. And what we are arguing here is that most of the largest luxury goods groups have become de facto retailers. When you look at the list of the names that I showed you at the beginning, 75% of their sales are now through their directly operated stores. So we can assume that luxury goods companies today are de facto retailers. So what you care about is that your same-store sales continue to grow, because if they don't, your return on invested capital is going to decline. And from an investor viewpoint, return on invested capital declines are anathema. That is the last thing you want, because, and this is showing very badly on the screen, but basically what this should read on the horizontal axis is return on invested capital growth. So you look at a period of time, in this case 10 years, you look at a company, you see what was the return on invested capital 10 years ago, what is the return on invested capital today, and you find the total shareholder returns, so the share price appreciation and the dividends that this company paid, are typically correlated to return on invested capital improvements to a very high degree. The return on invested capital change explains 90% of the variance, so all of the variance, really. So return on invested capital going down destroys shareholder value. And this is exactly what has happened in the most recent 2 years. So it's not that the formula is not going to work for the next few years. The formula, the growth formula that we looked at, hasn't worked already for the past 2 or 3 years. Because what you see there is that return on invested capital for the industry as a whole between 2012 and 2014 has actually gone back by 5 percentage points. Those companies that grew their retail networks the most, and it's a good thing that they are neither French nor American, Swatch and Prada have been leading on the negative. You see that their return on invested capital has been, that their return on invested capital progression has been abysmal because Prada has reduced return on invested capital by 11 percentage points and Swatch by 9 percentage points. So when you look at the share price of Prada 3 years ago and you look at the share price of Prada today, you realize that today it's more or less a third of what it was. So why is this happening? Well, I think that this is happening because the luxury goods industry has typically grown in waves. We had the Japanese in the 80s, we had the Russians in the 90s, the Middle Eastern consumers, and in the most recent 10 or 15 years, it's all been about Chinese consumers. What we show here is that over 10 years, the bulk of the growth in the industry, between 2005 and 2015, I'm just talking about personal luxury goods. So this is the 235 billion euros that Elsa was talking about in her introduction. This portion of the global luxury market has grown at around 6%. You strip off the contribution by the Chinese, and you get to 2%. Okay, so 2/3 of the growth was driven by the Chinese getting into the personal luxury goods market. As the Chinese moderate, this number is also going to moderate. So the first question for you, what growth do you expect in your business in 2016 and 2017? We have our own expectations of what the growth of the market is going to be. I would be very curious to see what the audience is thinking. Well, with 3 to 5%, accidentally on purpose, you will see in the attachments for the day, this is exactly our forecast for the next 3 to 5 years. So we seem to be on the same page here, which is interesting. So, and this was not planted, so that was good. Thank you very much. Now, what does this mean in terms of the changing agenda for senior management in personal luxury goods companies? Well, I think that it means a few things. First of all, if the growth gets more difficult to achieve, there will be a need for tighter capital allocation and cost efficiency. So the luxury goods companies become a bit more normal, a bit more like other sectors in the broader industry. There's going to be a need to work on brand desirability and market share gains. Once again, we go to a new normal where doing better than your peers is very important, and there is less of a tide that is lifting all boats in the shape of easy, quote-unquote, Chinese demand. The third point is the one that I'm going to be focusing in the next few slides, and that is exploring growth pockets that are potentially still available in the current market environment. And the most important one, we think, is digital luxury. Luxury goods companies have been pushing back on digital for the good part of the past 10 years. Whenever I was talking to a CEO of a large luxury goods group, I was asking them, why is it that you're skeptical about digital? The answer was typically, it's not that I'm skeptical, I have better things to do. And that was typically opening more stores in China. Now, it seems that we're running out of better things to do. And I think that a lot of luxury goods companies have U-turned and are focused on digital as a very promising growth frontier. The other one, which we continue to expect to have a higher growth rate than the average, is travel retail. 50 to 60% of luxury goods products are bought by people on the move, and that there's a significant opportunity to exploit that further. I'm not going to address that, and I'm not going to address point number 4, which has to do with cleaning up the house, which means taking care of the underperforming businesses that have remained within the various luxury goods groups. Now, to digital, we expect, well, first of all, in 2015, you see that in a number of markets, if we take the US, for example, digital luxury is already very significant indeed, and around 13%. Globally, it's broadly around 7%. But what is most important is that in less than 5 years, these numbers will be between 15 and 22%. So to you, again, where do you stand on e-commerce sales today? And that is going to be another opportunity to see if we are on the same page or not. Well, it's interesting that we have quite a significant amount of replies that are either between 5 and 10%, and more than 40% that are above 10%. So this is clearly showing sort of a bimodal kind of distribution with a number of brands or number of companies that have probably yet to address the digital opportunity, but this seems less than a fifth at the moment. Quite a significant number of you that are actually benefiting quite significantly from digital. That we think is important, because when we look at the value of cross-channel consumers, when we look at consumers that just buy in-store and consumers that buy both in-store and on the internet, we find that the cross-channel consumer is typically 60% more valuable to luxury brands than the in-store only consumer. So that's a lot of money. That's a lot of opportunity to get more value out of your consumer base. The other thing which is important is that when we look at those cross-channel consumers over time, and we have data for the past 4 years, we see that the amount of luxury dollars that these cross-channel consumers have been spending online has continued to grow. It was 30% in 2011, and it's gone to almost 40% of their total luxury spend in 2014. So not only the cross-channel consumers are more valuable, they're also continuing to spend more online, and their spend in physical stores has gone to a bit more than 60%, and that was already 2 years ago. So I would be expecting that to be around 60% now. The other thing which I think opens new opportunities for luxury goods companies, as they address a relatively small portion of the global population, is that luxury goods companies, as a consequence of developing their digital capabilities, are getting to know virtually all of their customers by name. So this creates a huge opportunity for CRM activities. This creates also a need, once you know your customers by name and you have their email address and you know where they are, this begs the question, what are you going to tell them? So content and communication and dialogue with these consumers is going to be very important. Now, a question again, what % of sales do registered clients, so clients that you know by name, represent for you? It's going to be interesting to see where we stand on the CRM opportunity in this audience. Well, it's quite evenly distributed, we see, with the largest portion between 30 and 50%, but quite a significant amount, almost a fourth of you knowing 80% of your customers by name, which I think is a lot. Clearly, more development of digital and further integration of in-store activities and digital will get these numbers to continue to grow. Now, the fact that digital becomes so important for growth and so important for luxury goods companies also creates the issue of how you translate a luxury experience on the internet. I mean, we've been learning in the industry for years how to create a luxury experience in the stores, making the stores beautiful, making service in the stores impeccable, and merchandising and so on, product display, the windows, etc. So what does it mean being online, which, by the way, in most cases when we look at what consumers actually use to shop luxury goods products online, means what does it mean to be on a mobile device, okay? Now, we did a bit of homework, and you will see the research report in the resources section of your iPads. We've carried out in the field research. We've bought online from 30 different brands a card holder and a belt just to measure the various brands on each step of the way, from the emails we received to the packaging, to what happens to an abandoned cart, to what was the precision in delivery, and so on. So you see here our research methodology, which has gone through a number of criteria and parameters, and we've quantified everything, which is a way to justify a salary. So what I think is interesting, and I wonder whether you can all see those numbers that are very small, but the purpose of those numbers is to show that there's quite a dispersed performance today in terms of the online shopping experience that you can get from luxury goods brands. They should all be impeccable. In reality, you find that these brands today are very dispersed. You get, in terms of, you have here all of the scores that the various brands got, both in terms of physical touch points and digital touch points. And the first two columns here represent the overall score. You see that in the case of the number one, Fendi, they totaled around 110 points, while the laggards in this list totaled after half of that. I have to add that this research was carried out by our partners in Italy. So it was based on online purchase experience in Italy. It may well be different in other markets. And the next research that we're going to be seeing has been actually carried out in New York. But before we get there, I would like to ask you what criteria you think are most important in terms of online purchase experience. Website, reliability, easy ordering process, delivery timing, return procedure, and packaging. Yes, easy ordering process is by far the answer here. I would tend to agree as a consumer. So that's interesting. Now, one of the points that we make is that the Holy Grail here is not so much becoming an online player or a pure online player. The Holy Grail here is to integrate physical and digital operations. That's where the value will come from, because you have invested capital in your stores. So digital can serve as a feed, a traffic feeder to the stores. It can increase traffic conversion. If you go to a store and they don't have your size, they don't have your color, you can order it. If the brand is well organized, you can order it there in the store for home delivery. And you can order it if they have a digital way to see what their inventory is in the central warehouse. Increased convenience of online purchases, which means basically facilitating returns. I buy stuff online and I return it in store, and I don't want to know about going to the post office or anything like that. And leveraging cross-selling opportunities. If you have people that bought online and pick up in store, if you have a sales force that is worth their salt, they will try and sell something else that goes with what your customers already bought. So I think that that is indeed a very important area for luxury goods companies to create value and to drive sales per square foot at the end of the day, which is what is going to drive return on invested capital, and which is what is going to drive total shareholder returns, as we showed before. We analyzed, in this case, 57 flagship and standalone stores and 4 department stores in New York. That was during the month of December. Once again, we looked at a number of criteria: technology in store, recognition in store of digital customers, so whether you can see, for example, their preferred items list, whether you can recognize them through beacon technology, and so on. And what can you do in terms of online promotion while in store? So can you order stuff that is not in store? Can you return stuff that you bought online? And so on. Here too, and that was, again, the purpose of this quantification, we find that performance is very dispersed. It's not very surprising. We are in the early days of digital. I think that most of the luxury goods companies, at least in Europe and in France, have set digital as a key priority in the most recent 2 years, not long before that. The Americans probably a bit earlier than that. And in fact, you see that at the top of this list, you typically find American brands. So just another question: what elements do you think are most important when integrating physical and digital? Here too, you have a multiple choice. Technology in store, seamless shopping experience, shop in store and deliver at home, very interesting. Clearly, the seamless shopping experience and buy online and exchange return in store is what wins the day here. Okay, so that was it as far as the introduction is concerned. I wonder if you have any questions, or if there are any questions from the audience. I was told that we have a very technological way to get questions appear on my iPad here. I don't see any. So there you go.
Low tech way of asking a question.
That's good with me.